Today on the Chat and Chew Show.
But how has that journey been for you, just being a male, trying to, accept your own feelings and express them?
I think that was the hardest part, being able to accept and express feelings. It's something I'm just not used to doing, right? I'm used to being stoic when I shouldn't be stoic. I'm used to pretending to be okay when I'm not okay. And so I had to learn to express I'm not okay. Excuse me. I had to learn to cry. I had to learn to do the things that seem simple, but if you're not used to doing them, they seem difficult and it seems uncomfortable.
Spending any significant amount of time on Earth comes with its own share of losses. You may have had to face the loss of a job, the loss of a relationship, or maybe you've had to mourn the future you thought you would have. But few losses compare to the loss of a loved one. Today on the Chat and Chew Show, we are joined by Edward Bempong, who is no stranger to the show. You may have seen him on our first season when we did a deep dive into smart dating. Today, Edward chats with us about the sudden passing of his mother and shares some of the best advice that he received as he continues to process his grief. Also, we'll learn how to better support our friends in mourning. Get ready, Chat Tribe, for a very candid discussion on life after loss.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Chat and Chew Show. My name is Betty.
And I'm Roxanne.
And we are excited that you are with us this morning. Well, it's morning for us. And Roxy, we are back.
We are.
Oh my, we're in season 3, and I don't know what episode this is yet, but man, we took a break over the summer and we are back, and we are so excited that you guys have clicked on the Chat and Chew Show. Let me just say this before we even dive in to today's topic. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button and hit that like button, because that helps us to let other people know that we are here. And you guys know the goal of the show is to empower people to do their relationships better. And we want to help you with that, helping you navigate through your relationships and such. And today's show, we have a special guest, but you'll find out who that is in a second. But I just want to ask Roxanne, what's going on, girl?
With me?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like I'm working my life away. What about What about you?
I'm doing good. Now, Roxanne is not even talking about that she got a new position at her company. She's now a supervisor at her company. I'm like, go ahead, Miss Roxy. She is doing it. And I'm sure you're having to encounter different type of relationships in your company.
Oh, I am. Something that I won't talk about on camera.
Okay. Good. Well, today's episode, I think, is going to be really helpful for you. All of us have gone through some craziness, I want to say a year and a half through this pandemic. And so we've lost a lot of things in this year. So we want to talk to our very special guest. In fact, he was our very first guest on the Chat and Chew Show. So hang on, this is going to be a great episode.
Everybody, welcome back. As we mentioned, we have a great guest that is great joining us. See what I did there? I was trying to see if you were watching, if you were paying attention. So our guest that we have on today is none other than Mr. Edward Bempong, who some of us call Teddy. Am we allowed to say that? Can I say that?
Sure. I mean, it's a name that I go by.
Okay, great. So what you guys don't know is Teddy was like one of our first guests way back when we first started the Chat and Chew Show. And so we're so glad that he still actually likes us and was like, he survived after that episode and was like, oh, I'll come back and actually say hi again. So thank you, Teddy, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, Teddy, unfortunately, you went through a tough time, actually, as a lot of us have gone through during the pandemic, but I would say it's a little harder for you, especially a lot of us experiencing loss. Would you tell us a little about your mom and just everything that happened with her?
Sure. So peak pandemic would have been last summer. So my mother passed away last September. So we actually celebrated her 1 year passing last week. And it was difficult. I mean, so pre-pandemic, if somebody's, dying or in the hospital, everybody can go see this person in the hospital. Because my mother passed peak pandemic, like we had to beg to go see her. And even then, when she finally did pass, she was by herself, just because they were very strict about who could go see her, when we can go see her, so on and so forth, which is one of those things that to this day bothers me, because I can't shake the feeling that my mother was by herself when she passed versus us being around her. And
So
I think
Teddy, can I ask you a couple questions? So what, did your mom pass from COVID or?
No, my mother didn't pass from COVID. So this is interesting. So one of the things that I learned to do recently is actually not talk about what my mother passed of.
Okay.
If I'm asked, how did your mother pass? You just say peacefully, happily, so on and so forth. Only because it's not that I have a problem doing it, but I challenge people who ask that question. What if the person died tragically? Can you handle that information?
Right.
What if the person committed suicide? Are you sure you can handle that information?
Yeah.
While my mother's death wasn't tragic, it's a question of, in knowing this information, if I were to disclose that or talk about that, how do you know that won't trigger me also? So one of the things I wanted to talk about today was really that question. I'm glad you asked it. And it's not me being obtuse, more so that's actually a very tricky question to even ask or answer. And something that I learned because like my father sat me down. I was like, listen, like it's really nobody's business. And it's something that I had to embrace.
So why do you think people ask that question? I mean, do you think people are just being nosy? Are you thinking because if it was tragic, would we respond one way? And if it wasn't tragic, then we would respond another way. Why do you think people ask?
I think part of it is nosiness, and I think the other part of it is I think when it comes to death, if you haven't experienced it before, death is a very awkward thing, and so I don't think people actually know what to do or how to console people. And even going through this, people said some of the wildest things to me from the standpoint of I'm trying to console you, and it's like, no, that's actually like extremely offensive. And so I say that to say I think part of it's nosiness, and I think part of it is people just don't understand death and how to truly console somebody who's gone through that. And unfortunately, only when you experience death like this, you truly know how to comfort somebody who's going through the same thing.
Yeah. So your mom, then you guys didn't get a chance to be with her in the hospital, which added to how you were feeling about the whole thing. I mean, losing your mother is huge, first of all, and then not being able to spend moments with her. I used to work at assisted living, and when I first got there, they were, when the residents would pass, they would have a funeral right there because it's a huge place. But then when the pandemic hit, they had to start doing video funerals. I mean, it was just horrible. The families couldn't come and see, their loved ones. So I can imagine, what you were feeling and your family was feeling too.
Well, we were blessed with the opportunity to see my mom while she's in the hospital. Like I said, we were able to beg and finesse to see her, but we weren't there.
So it's been a year, you said, and how are you doing? How is your family doing?
One of the things about grief is I think everybody handles it differently, right? So 1 year later, it still hurts, right? I think one of the misconceptions about death is that you adjust to a new normal. But when you lose a parent, there's no such thing as normal without them being here. You just adjust to the void. And so for me, it's a lifelong adjustment. I was in school when my mother passed, and I graduated this past May. And she was the person I would call first. Anytime there's a major life event, I'd call her first. And so it's weird having these major accomplishments and not being able to share it with her. My father's still here, so it's not like I can't share it with a parent, but it's different. And one of my good friends told me that going forward, when you lose a parent, you adjust to that void until you have a major life accomplishment. And that's when you feel that hurt, that pain, because you can't share it. Yeah. And I can say that's definitely been me. It's definitely, I would say, harder on my father because my parents were married, close to 50 years.
Right.
And so there are things that my father had to relearn how to do, not because he was incapable. It's just that my mother did it for him. And I think it's vice versa. As a married person, you know, you take on roles or tasks for your partner. Not that your partner can't do it, it's just that this is what I'm just going to do for you. And so when you've gotten used to doing that, I think it's a hard transition to like basically learn how to do things that your partner, your spouse did for you. And so I all of us, you know, with my siblings and my dad, I think it's more hurtful for my father to go through this now, because I think while we all experienced the brunt, I think he experiences it in a different way. We also have to keep in mind my father is of a certain age where men don't talk about their feelings, to where men aren't given agency to say that they're sad or happy, so on and so forth. And so I think for him, he's going through, but unfortunately, because of when he was born and him being a man, I don't think he has the tools to really talk about what's going on.
Right. Yeah. I mean, again, for people who are out there listening, who've gone through, you know, loss, this has been a tough year for everybody. I think, you know, maybe you didn't lose a parent, but you lost your job or your income or, you know, your relationships. You know, a lot of us have been in the house and things like that. So it's been really tough. So I'm so sorry for your loss. Speaking of which, I said that to you. Tell me some of the things that people said to you that they shouldn't have said.
Perfect. One of my favorite things, and that's me being sarcastic, somebody called, you know, expressed their condolences and said, "No, I really thought your father would die first."
Nah, are you serious?
Absolutely. So it's like, how do you respond to that? Like, how do you respond to that?
I hang up the phone. How did you respond? I feel like, oh my gosh, I would hang up the phone.
At some point you just say, okay, thank you. And you keep it moving, because I'm dealing with something bigger than your offensive commentary. So it's kind of like, you know what? Like, okay.
Yeah. And I think what you said too is true, that people don't know what to say. So,
and unfortunately, it's not like you have a class of, hey, grief is going to happen. This is what you do. This is how you protect people. Honestly, I'm pretty sure I would have been that same person before my mother passed.
Yeah.
But now that I've gone through it and experienced those things, it's like my approach to my friends or whomever losing a loved one is completely different.
Yeah. What would you say was most helpful that somebody said to you?
The most helpful thing somebody said to me was, when you have feelings, feel them. And especially as a man, right? Like, you know, society doesn't really rear us in a way to really explore and articulate our feelings or to have feelings. I mean, the biggest thing is just crying, right? And one of my friends who also lost a parent was like, no, feel your feelings, cry. One of my teachers at the time said, listen, you'll be buying apples one day in the grocery store and break down crying. It's okay.
Yeah.
And so it's those things that have been helpful. I'm trying to think, and like I said before, my friend telling me going forward, you know, major life accomplishments would be hard. It sounds insensitive, but it's one of those things that you actually needed to hear, because now that I've had some major life accomplishments, like, oh, he's true, it's right, or I can mentally prepare myself for what that's going to look like. So those are some of the things that have been super helpful for me. I can say that a lot of the great advice I got were from my friends who lost a parent. Just because, again, the way I see it is this: if you lose a friend, you can mentally go back to a place where that friend didn't exist, and that can help you, you know, move forward. Your parent has been there since your earliest memory. So there's not a place where you can mentally go back to where that parent didn't exist. And I think that's the most difficult part about losing a parent, because your parent has always been there. And if you're blessed to have a parent that you actually like, right, then it's always going to be hard. Like, what can you do? And these are some of the conversations I've had with a lot of my friends who lost a parent, and that just that honesty of, this will always hurt and it won't go away. But when you feel pain, you feel, you know, sadness, you feel anger, feel them.
I think what you said is helpful in that, you know, the Chat and Choose show is all about, you know, doing relationships better. And it's times like these when you need people in your life who you can say whatever. I mean, you could cry on, or you could just, be mad or whatever, and just people in your life who don't try to fix you, who don't try to solve it for you, but sometimes can just hear you. So
Absolutely.
Teddy, yeah, wow, that's huge.
So Teddy, I did have a question about your journey though, expressing your feelings, because because I was listening to you comparing yourself to your father and how his generation is just like, how do you even do that? Where do you even start? So it may, it's likely that he won't get to do that. But how has that journey been for you, just being a male, trying to, accept your own feelings and express them?
I think that was the hardest part, being able to accept and express feelings. This is something I'm just not used to doing, right? I'm used to being stoic when I shouldn't be stoic. I'm used to pretend to be okay when I'm not okay. And so I had to learn to express I'm not okay. Excuse me. I had to learn to cry. I had to learn to do the things that seem simple, but if you're not used to doing them, they seem difficult and it seems uncomfortable. But now at this point, like I said, behind the scenes, I told, the host, if I start crying randomly, it might just happen. And they're like, we'll cry with you. And I can say that now, but if you talked to me last year, I would never say I'm going to cry. I would never say, I need a shoulder to lean on. Now I'm good with expressing feelings. Now, what I have learned is there are a lot of people who are uncomfortable with seeing men express feelings, which is a lot to me. But I get it at some level. So I do try to make it a point to pick and choose who I share feelings with if I can control it.
Yeah. That's good.
I guess I'm curious, what's the pushback that you get? Like, does it just come out awkward, or did it not know what to say?
So it's funny. I actually find this pushback more with women than with men. I think, in my experience, I think a lot of women say they want a guy who's either in touch with their feelings or can express those feelings, but in reality, they don't. They're not ready, or they don't want to hear it. And so, like, I've had, please don't cry in front of me. Like, are you about to cry? Stop crying. And that type of stuff. So yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. So and this is my last follow-up question to this, but what is a good first step? Like, if you were like mentoring other men on how to express their feelings or accept them, what's a good like first step just to start doing that?
When those feelings come, just let them come. Don't try to block them. Don't try to hide them. Feel those feelings, because it's a part of the grieving process. Like, you can't, for me, I don't think it's possible to grieve healthily without feeling all the feelings. And if you buy into, the 7 stages of grief, denial, blah, 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 that happens and that's real. And you have to go through that journey, go through that process, and actually feel it and embrace it.
So have the ugly cry.
Oh, have all ugly cries. Be angry. In fact, one of my friends, her father-in-law passed away. And then she was heartbroken. One of the things I said is like, yo, if you're angry, be angry. It's okay. You can be mad at him for leaving.
I like that.
So whatever feeling you have about somebody passing, you have to express those feelings and not be guilty about it, and know that it's okay. Because again, for one person it can be anger, another person can be sadness, or for another person it can be joy. Like, whatever feeling comes up, feel it, express it, and it's okay.
Yeah. And I like that. Don't be guilty or ashamed. Because I guess for men, it may be like feeling ashamed if you're crying and it's like you look weak or whatever. And some people, like you said, may feel guilty if they're angry with the person for leaving. Or if they have joy afterwards, they may feel guilty, like I shouldn't be happy at the so I like that, like no guilt or shame towards how you're feeling.
Yeah, because again, everybody's grief is different. And depending on how you depending on the relationship you have with the person and how you just process things, everybody goes through a different journey. So I look at my brothers and I, our journey with grief has all looked different. Like, we all don't have the same story as it pertains to grieving the loss of our mother, but we all grieve. So that's why, to your question, I think the first step is whatever feeling you have, feel it, let it go. Because I think that's the only way you'll be able to healthily move on, to be the place where I'm at right now, to talk about my mother's passing and not break down. Whereas you caught me November of last year, I was a mess.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I was a mess, though.
Yeah, yeah. I think what you said is just big. It's just being able to get it out. Because a lot of times, again, in this country, we don't do death and grief. We don't do it well. We want everybody to be happy, the land of the free, the home of the brave, that kind of thing. And that, grief, just being able to get it out and express it. I think another thing you said, and that's even if you haven't lost a parent, if you've lost something that's important to you, you're going to feel it. It's going to be with you. If you've been divorced, that's a loss. If you lost a child,
That's
a job, or something that was precious to you, it's going to be with you. And I think being able to get to navigate, that is huge. I think one way to navigate that, again, and we already said this, is to have people in your life who you can lean on. That's big.
What were some of the characteristics of the people that you do trust? I know you were saying that people who had lost a parent were the most helpful in terms of giving advice, but outside of that, like what are some of the characteristics of people that you're like, okay, I can trust my feelings with this person?
Honestly, the people who lost a parent.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it's when you lose a parent, you're initiated in a club. And once you're in this club, you know what it is. You know what it means. So you know what to you know who to talk to. So like Roxanne, we have mutual friends who lost parents. Those are the people that I would call, honestly. And those are the people who gave me permission to feel my feelings. Gave me permission to simply just talk. Gave me permission just to feel. And they felt with me. And I found them being the most helpful than anybody else, because they just knew. Because and again, when you lose a parent, you do ask weird questions. So one of the weird questions I asked one of my friends is like, so do you dream about your parent? And everybody had an answer to that question. And more or less everybody said yes, but it looked like this. And so it's kind of like, okay. And so I felt like I had the ability to ask some of these weird questions that you probably wouldn't ask any random person, but you would ask somebody who is in this club that really understands what it means to lose a parent.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Teddy, thank you so much for sharing your story and what you're going through. It seems like you're on your way to some type of healing. Yeah,
I think, like I said, what I would tell anybody, it's you never adjust to a loss like this.
Yeah.
Or rather, there's not a normal that's gonna come. You just adjust to the void. You adjust to that person not being there.
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily make life easier. It's just one of those things you get used to. And so, like I said before, major life accomplishments, or I'll give you something real simple. Last December, I finished my semester and then I got strep throat at the same time. And so whenever I got sick or whenever, semester ended, who did I call? My mom. So I legitimately started calling her. And then I stopped. I was like, wow, she's not here. And I cried in my car because of that.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, you get used, you adjust to the void, but it doesn't get any easier or better. It's just an adjustment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so one of the things that or at least for me, one of the things I had to do was find ways to honor her legacy, keep her memory alive so that, it doesn't hurt as much.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Honor her legacy. I think, again, for our listeners who haven't lost a parent, anything you've lost, if you can look at it from that vantage point, that is huge. Honor their legacy, honor its legacy. That's huge. Well, Teddy, thank you so much for hanging with us here at the Chat and Chew Show. We did an episode not long ago. Roxy, do you remember the young lady we talked to who talked about grief and loss? That was her thing. What was her name?
Lavana.
Lavana. All right, so we can link that episode to in the show notes. I think it would be helpful. So Teddy, can you tell people where they can follow you?
My Instagram is that dude, ThatDoode.
Okay.
I think that's my Twitter. Roxanne, you can just write those things down right under the subscribe button. So people can... Yeah.
Yeah. And Roxy, you want to tell folks where they can find us?
Sure. You can find us on Facebook or Instagram and YouTube at Chat and Chew Show. If you're watching on YouTube, remember to subscribe, follow, like everything, everywhere that we are, and also share with your friends as well. Also, if you have a story that you want to share on the Chat and Chew Show, please feel free to reach out to us. You can hit us in a DM, not slide, on Instagram. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
This episode is brought to you by the Chat and Chew Company. Host Betty Jones, co-host Roxanne Brew, producer Vanessa Outland, and music by Elwood Jones.